Good morning, everyone, and happy Monday morning to you. Hopefully, it's going to be a good week. We're looking at Romans chapter 1. It's the beginning of the letter of St. Paul to the Romans, chapter 1, verses 1 to 7. And it's interesting how he explains what they, as the early missionaries, if you like, or early apostles, were required to do. And he says, our apostolic mission is to preach the obedience of faith to all pagan nations. Now, we often hear about St. Paul talking about that he did a lot of work amongst the Gentiles. And so therefore, it wasn't just the Jews that he was working with. In fact, often he refers to the tension between the Jews and the Gentiles. And so anyway, that's not the topic for today. But in working with people who knew very little about the Lord, there was always a great challenge of bringing them a message in a way in which they would be able to accept it. And I thought, well, it's quite a good message for us to look at today. And I came across some information from Father Mike Schmitz, and he suggests that if you want to evangelize or to bring new people into the church, there are some basically 3 steps that you go through. And the first one is build trust and relationships. In other words, don't walk up to the person and accuse them, sort of saying, I've seen that you're looking quite bad. And that's not the best way to actually evangelize. Earn their trust. Become a good friend. In other words, somebody that is going to listen, somebody who's going to be prepared to walk the journey. And quite importantly, he says, listen before speaking. And often we're going to say, we've got to try and put our message across. Listen to where the other person is first, and then try to put the message across. The second element that he speaks about is to share the story of God's love. In other words, tell the gospel. Tell the message that Christ gave, not just our own personal experience. So the challenge is for us to know what that message is, to be aware of what it is that we're talking about, and to live on in mission. So don't just be nice, but live on a mission to know Jesus and to make him known to others. So the Great Commission that the disciples were given was to actually go out and to make disciples of all nations. That was their challenge, and that is what we're required to do. And the third point that Father Mike comes up with is we need to live the mission through action. And that's quite important. He says, go and make disciples. We must therefore let God act through us. Let God act through us. And sometimes we try to force that issue. But just make ourselves available and let the Holy Spirit work through us. And then practice vulnerability. We're not perfect. None of us are perfect. Surprisingly, not even me. Yeah, I'm kidding. We're all imperfect. We all have our own faults, and just to accept and acknowledge that. But to be human beings who want to bring the message to others. Have a wonderful day. Keep yourself safe. God bless. Bye-bye.